Hey there, welcome back to the Personal Growth Kickoff. This is the fourth video in the series. I hope these learnings have been valuable to you, and I'm also hopeful for the progress you've been making in whatever area you're trying to grow in. Growing intentionally is hard. That's why most don't. You've chosen to grow, and you are following through, which means you're on a great trajectory for accomplishing what you want to achieve and becoming who you want to become. Let's jump into our next teaching. Imagine for a moment that you're holding a rubber band. On its own, sitting loose on a table or in my hand, this rubber band doesn't do much. It's just there. But the moment you stretch it, suddenly it has potential. It can hold things together, but it only works when there's tension. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about tension. There's a lot of tension that happens when you're trying to grow. And one of the most important things you can learn is how to embrace the tension that you face in your personal growth. John Maxwell calls this the law of the rubber band. Growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be. That tension between your current reality and your desired future is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's actually one of the most important forces for your personal growth. And if you allow it, that tension can become your ally, a quiet inner pull that keeps you stretching, learning, and growing. Think again about the rubber band for a second. When it's not stretched, it's comfortable, but it's also useless. And when it's stretched too far, it snaps. But when it's stretched just right, it's incredibly useful. The same is true for your personal growth. Many of us stay understretched in the comfort of what we already know, or we live overstretched in chronic stress and burnout. The sweet spot is healthy tension. You see clearly where you are, and you also see clearly where you want to be, and you refuse to pretend the gap doesn't exist. You let that gap pull you forward instead of beating you down. That tension is not a flaw. It's proof that you still care, that you still have room to grow, and that your future is bigger than your past. There's a principle in psychology and performance research that mirrors this idea. We grow most when we operate in the stretch zone, not the comfort zone and not the panic zone. In the comfort zone, you feel safe, but you're stagnant. In the panic zone, you feel overwhelmed and your performance drops. In the stretch zone, you feel some discomfort, but you're still capable of learning and adapting. Recognizing the stretch zone begins with feeling and embracing the tension. I'm not yet the leader I want to be. I'm not physically able to do what I want to be able to do. I know I can build something on my own. I need to take the next step. When you numb that tension, you numb your growth. When you embrace it, you give yourself permission to become more than you currently are. Now, this is supported by a lot of research and writing about human growth and performance. Angela Duckworth's research on grit, passion, and perseverance over the long term reveals that success isn't just about talent. It's about your ability to stay committed and keep moving through difficulty. Gritty people don't interpret tension as a reason to stop. They see it as a natural part of the journey. Of course, there's a gap between where I am and where I want to be. That gap is my path. They expect the stretch, and they keep showing up anyway. Anders Ericsson's research on deliberate practice found that experts in any field, music, sports, chess, leadership, don't grow by repeating what they're already good at. They grow by repeatedly operating just beyond their current ability. They get feedback, they adjust, and then they try again. That just beyond place is exactly the tension we're talking about. It's the place where you feel a bit clumsy, a bit exposed, and a bit uncertain. And that's where transformation happens. So when you feel that internal stretch, that unease between where you are and where you want to be, you're experiencing the very conditions that research says are necessary for genuine growth. But here's the problem. How we are interpreting the tension is causing us to avoid what we need to do to grow. I want you to think for a minute about what enters your mind the second you feel uncomfortable about acting on your next step of growth. Chances are what comes to mind is fear, pain, doubt, difficulty, and discomfort. These are natural feelings and emotions that our brains are wired to feel and react with. This is actually an amazing way our brain protects us from something that is going to be painful or uncomfortable. And those thoughts cause us not to act. We don't get out of bed to go on that run or do that workout because it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. We don't read the rest of the book that could be a game changer for us because we doubt we'll understand it. We don't follow through on the tough conversation because we fear how it's going to be received. We don't take the risk of putting ourselves out there because we doubt anyone will benefit from what we have to say. Those thoughts and feelings that tension causes are real. But what if that same uncomfortable tension is actually a sign that you're growing? And what if, by giving it meaning and purpose, you could turn those moments into some of the most valuable experiences of your life? That's what I want to talk about with you. How giving meaning and purpose to uncomfortable tension is good for your personal growth, and how to actually do it. That shift in belief changes everything. The same tension that used to feel like a threat becomes an invitation. But this is the hardest thing to learn when it comes to growing, improving, developing, and getting better. Because we literally have to train our mind to reprocess. First, let's define uncomfortable tension, the kind of tension that is good for us to embrace. It's that internal friction you feel when you are being stretched. But the good tension to embrace is in a sweet spot, like we talked about when developing patterns of growth. It's not panic and it's not burnout. It's that edge where you're being stretched just enough. Psychologists sometimes call this optimal stress or productive discomfort. It's the space just outside your comfort zone where growth actually happens. Now, tension by itself doesn't automatically produce growth, but tension plus meaning can. And one of the most powerful ways you can embrace the tension and make it work for you is by giving it meaning and purpose. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote that people can endure almost any how if they have a strong enough why. He observed that meaning, having a purpose, changed how people faced extreme suffering and tension in the most brutal conditions. He said, in some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. That principle holds true in our personal development as well. Uncomfortable tension without meaning feels like anxiety, threat, or even failure. Uncomfortable tension with meaning feels like training, preparation, and refinement. The discomfort may look the same on the outside, but the story you attach to it completely changes your inner experience. In other words, the way you interpret tension changes the impact it has on you. So why is giving meaning and purpose to your tension so powerful for personal growth? Well, let me offer you 3 reasons why. 1, meaning turns resistance into alignment. Whenever you grow, part of you resists. This is hard. This is uncomfortable. Let's go back to what's easy. If there's no clear purpose, that resistance usually wins. But when you're deeply connected to a meaningful why, for example, becoming a better leader for your team, being a more present parent, living with greater integrity, then that resistance becomes easier to face. It's no longer you versus the tension. It becomes you and the tension working together in service of something that matters. The discomfort doesn't disappear, but it stops feeling pointless. Second reason is meaning helps you stay in the growth zone, not the panic zone. Growth happens just outside your comfort zone, like we've talked about, but there's a limit. Too much tension with no meaning can push you into overwhelm and you shut down. When you name the purpose behind your discomfort, you create a kind of mental container for it. You're not just stressed, you're stretched because I'm learning to delegate, or challenged because I'm building the courage to have honest conversations. That framing allows you to stay longer in the productive tension without tipping into panic or burnout. Third reason why meaning is important for personal growth and that tension is because it shapes your identity, not just your skills. Every time you walk through discomfort on purpose for a meaningful reason, you're not just learning a skill. You're telling yourself a story about who you are. I'm the kind of person who leans into hard things when they matter. I'm the kind of leader who has courageous conversations when it's best for the team. Over time, those stories become your identity, and your identity sets the ceiling for your growth. So, how do you give meaning and purpose to the tension you're feeling right now? I'm going to give you 4 practical steps, 4 practical things to do. Step 1, name the tension. Ask, where am I feeling the most uncomfortable tension in my life and in my growth right now? Maybe it's in learning to developing stronger relationship skills. Maybe it's stepping into a new responsibility that feels bigger than you. Maybe that tension is in sticking with your plan to get healthier and have more energy. Or maybe it's in an internal conflict between who you want to be versus how you're currently living. Whatever it is, name it and write it down. I feel tension when blank. Second step, connect it to a meaningful why. Ask this, if I walk through this tension instead of avoiding it, what kind of person am I becoming? And who benefits if I grow? Here's an example. If I embrace this tension, I become a more physically healthy person. If I embrace this tension, I become a leader who gives my team clarity, gains trust, and gives direction. If I embrace this tension, I become more confident in the value I have to offer others. Now, take steps 1 and 2 and merge them into a new sentence and write it down. I feel tension around blank, and that tension is helping me become blank. Third step, reframe the discomfort as training. Elite athletes don't enjoy every hard workout, but they give it meaning. This pain is preparing me. That's how they stick with it. You can do the same. The next time the tension hits and those feelings and emotions surface, say to yourself some things like this. This tension is training me to become the person I want to become. The discomfort I'm feeling right now is evidence that I'm in the growth zone. And I'm not stuck in the comfort zone. This sucks, but it's going to push me toward where I want to be. Now, this sounds simple, but this reframing can shift you from avoidance to action. Fourth and final step, take one small, courageous action. Meaning without movement doesn't create growth. So ask, What is one small step I can take into this tension today? Not 10 steps, one. Make the call, schedule the conversation, ask for feedback, do the workout, read the book, choose what's best. Then afterwards, reflect. What did I learn about myself? How did this tension grow me? That reflection locks in the growth. Uncomfortable tension is not your enemy. It's a signal. It's your mind and body telling you you're on the edge of something important. And when you attach deep meaning and purpose to that tension, you stop running from it and start partnering with it. And it's in that partnership that growth happens. So the next time you feel that internal friction, don't just ask, how do I get rid of this? Instead, ask, what is this tension training me for? Who am I becoming because I'm willing to embrace it and act? The more you embrace the tension and take action, the more you will grow. And that kind of growth is going to create a deep sense of fulfillment that is addictive and motivating.